And people bring me their old books. Well, just what is old? Grandma's Bible, 1902? Well, it depends on your perspective. It's older than me. It's older than everybody else in this room. How about Lewis and Clark's Expedition? It was 1814 that was published. Or Franklin's Experiments. That the first edition was 1751, which, by the way, that edition is not my personal favorite because it doesn't have the kite experiment in it. He hadn't done it yet. So the first edition is not necessarily the best.
What year did you do that?
That was in,
I think 1757.
57, yeah, that sounds about right. It was later, because it was in the third edition, but not the first two. Okay, the King James Bible of 1611. Is that old? It's reasonably old. Or one that, has anybody ever heard of the Hypnerotomachia Polyphili? You've heard of it. You must have. Okay, it's a fairly obscure volume, printed in Venice in 1499. Okay, well, how about the Gutenberg Bible? Is that old compared to Sumerian clay tablets? No, it's all relative. Now, the Ellesmere Chaucer, which is the other gem at the Huntington, dates from slightly before the Gutenberg Bible, from approximately 1420, I believe. So the benchmark for printed books is the Gutenberg Bible. All right, so that really is what we would consider an old printed book. So what's rare? That's the other buzzword that gets thrown around a lot. And okay, I just pulled a series of titles just for the heck of it. So Huckleberry Finn, first edition of 1885. Okay, and Edgar Allan Poe, Tamerlane. Newton's Principia, Bay Psalm book, Shakespeare First Folio, one that I'm sure you've heard of, the Servetus, Christianismi Restitutio, the Restoration of Christianity, or Andreas Vesalius. It's one of the most important books on human anatomy from 1543, or Copernicus, on a heliocentric solar system, or again the Colonna, or the Gutenberg. Well, what's rare? All right. Well, Huckleberry Finn, is that a rare first edition? Here's a copy of it back there on display in the gallery. This is not a rare book. It's an expensive book, but it's not rare. There are literally thousands of copies that were produced. Tamerlane. Anybody heard of this one? You notice here, it's by a Bostonian. Well, that Bostonian was Edgar Allan Poe. This is the first published work of Edgar Allan Poe. There were 50 copies printed. This is the holy grail of American literature. This is rare. There's a dozen copies known. There's probably another one still out there in somebody's attic. Okay, Newton's Principia. Well, remember when he sat underneath the apple tree and got conked by the apple and all that other wonderful fairy tale? How many people have actually read Newton's Principia? No? That's Romani Eum Domus, if anybody's ever seen The Life of Brian. Okay. All Latin. It's a wonderful book if you read Latin fluently. I don't. This is not rare, but it is a very expensive book. Okay, the Bay Psalm book. Anybody know anything about this? The Bay Psalm book?
One of the first printed in America.
In British America. It is 1640. It was the first one printed in the colonies. So it is extremely rare. And there are very few complete copies of this thing still around because it was literally read and used to pieces. Now, as the qualification I put on that for British America, as soon as the Spanish got to Mexico, they set up a printing press. So the early 16th century, they were actually printing. So there is a little distinction, but this one being in English is a very scarce piece. Okay, how about this one? The 1623 First Folio. Is that a rare book? What do you think? Yeah, I'm seeing, you're absolutely right. It's not rare. It's very valuable, but it's not rare. There's about 250 copies out of the 1,000 print run that are known. Okay? And how about the Christianismi Restitutio that nobody's ever heard of? This one is fabulously rare because Servetus was a real bad boy as far as the church in the 16th century. He denied the Trinity and original sin. Well, somebody named John Calvin took exception to this. And Calvin was a real stinker with no sense of humor. He had Servetus burned, and all of his copies of the Christianismi. The last one being chained to Servetus' thigh as he was burned alive. You know, they really had no sense of humor back in those days. Well, there are 3 copies of this that did survive, and guess who had one of them?
Why it's having Jewish letters.
John Calvin. John Calvin himself kept a copy. So, this is an exceptionally rare book. All right? The Vesalius book on the human body. It's the first accurate depiction of human anatomy from 1543, which, by the way, was the same year that Nicholas Copernicus published on the revolution of celestial bodies. And this was absolutely heretical to put the sun, Sol, here, and you notice there is Terra surrounded by Luna. And at that time, Saturn was the furthest planet that they could find. So this is not terribly rare either. There are 277 known copies in the census. It's fabulously valuable. Were you to get one of these at auction now, you'd be lucky to get it for $1.5 million. The Hyptoromachia. Okay? This one is considered, this was printed by Aldus Manutius. He was the most important printer of the Renaissance in Venice because it is considered the most perfect design of image and type. It is extremely fine, but this is rare. How about the Gutenberg Bible? Is it a rare book? Not really. Not really. Here's the breakdown. You know, lots and lots of Huck Finns. There's only a dozen known Tamerlanes. Newton's Principia. You got the money to spend. You've got about 500 to 750,000. Sure, you can find a real nice copy. The Babzien book, unobtainable. And the First Folio, the last one, it's about